Today we're going to make some easy floating shelves using just 3 power tools. This video is sponsored by SimpliSafe. More about that later in the video. I'm going to make these shelves out of some scrap pieces of 2x6s that I had left over. After marking the desired length, I used a speed square to guide my circular saw so that I would make nice square cuts. I'm holding the speed square with one hand and then lining up the blade of the circular saw right to the pencil line. I then marked the locations of the shelves. Now I want 4 spaces, but you can really divide it up any way you want. I lined up the 2 side pieces and then drew lines showing where I need to cut recesses for the shelf boards to fit into. 2x6s are 1.5 inches thick, so I drew the lines 1.5 inches apart. I set the blade on my saw to cut about 3/8 of an inch deep. Now the exact measurement isn't important, but you want to lock it in and keep it the same. Once again, I used my speed square to keep me inside the lines and made a whole bunch of repeated cuts. I used 2 scrap pieces of 2x6 to support the saw and help me keep it level. I'm just trying to remove enough of the wood so that I can later use a chisel to clean out the grooves. The leftover pieces should be thin enough so that you can easily chisel them out without using a lot of force. After cutting all the recesses for the first board, I checked it against the marks on the second one just to make sure I was still lined up. 2x lumber is typically used for rough construction. It's affordable and therefore a great resource for beginners. If you wanted slightly wider shelves, you could use 2x8s. If you go any wider than that though, I think the cupping of the boards and the warpage would start to become a little bit of a problem. I sanded the boards with an orbital sander using 150 grit sanding pads. You could sand this by hand considering that 2x6s are normally pretty soft, but an orbital sander is only about $40 and it sure does save a lot of time. I spent about 3 minutes on each board, making sure not to round over the edges too much. In addition to the 2 side pieces, I cut 5 boards that will serve as the shelves. 2x lumber often has a little bit of a warp in it, and so you may notice that the edges fit in, but the whole board does not. You can fix this a few different ways. One way is to use a knife to just carve down the warp part, but this can be a little bit time consuming and it's hard to do it really cleanly. My favorite way is to just use the orbital sander and just really dig in with the edge to that warped section and then blend it out. Let's take a quick break from sanding for a message from our sponsor. SimpliSafe is an incredibly effective and reliable home security system. It's all monitored by professionals 24/7 who will call you in an emergency and send police help if needed. It's really easy and intuitive to use. Here's me unboxing the system that they sent me. What I like about it is that it's one system that has all these different really thoughtful features that plug into it. There's video cameras, a smart doorbell, motion detectors, devices that can tell you if a window or door is being opened. You can even add moisture detectors and remote thermometers that will tell you if your pipes are about to freeze or if you have a leak. It all starts with this base station which acts as the hub for the whole system. I added these wireless stick-on motion detectors in front of my large bifolding doors, these entry detection devices on the regular swinging doors, a camera with motion detection, and a water sensor in the laundry room. The SimpliSafe service has fair and honest prices with no contracts or hidden fees, and it's equipped for worst-case scenarios, meaning it will work even if you lose power or Wi-Fi. To check out SimpliSafe for yourself, go to simplisafe.com/homemade or just click on the link in the description box below. Alright, back to the build. I'm going to connect the pieces by driving in 2.5 inch long finish screws. I'm going to get the screws started in the side piece and then use my offhand to hold the shelf board flush to the side piece. Now you may have a little bit of trouble getting all the edges perfectly flush, but don't worry, I'll show you a way to fix that later. I just used 2 screws on the edges of each board. The screws are awfully close to the edges of the top and bottom shelf, so it's a good idea to pre-drill your holes just to minimize the opportunity for cracking. To cover the screw heads, I recommend finding the wood putty that's closest in color to the wood that you're working with. Now that the whole thing's assembled, I can sand all the edges on the front facing part flush. You could do the backside as well, but it's going to be against the wall, so who really cares? This was the part that was the most off for me, and it really didn't take that long to bring the edges down. I also sanded off the excess wood putty. I'm going to finish the wood with MakerBrand Simple Finish with Wax. I really like recommending this product for beginners because it's a stain and sealer all in one. And it's also really easy to apply evenly. You just apply a thick coat with a rag or a brush, let it sit for 10 minutes, apply another light coat, and then wipe away all the excess with a clean rag. Make sure you use a rag that it doesn't have a lot of lint in it, because the lint can get stuck in the oil. To hang the shelves, I'm going to cut a piece of wood that fits right under the top board. I'm going to use a 2x3 to do this, but you could use a 2x4 or a 2x6 as well. I want this support piece to blend into the wall, so I'm going to paint it with the exact same white paint that the wall is painted with. Whenever I'm trying to hang something that's heavier than a picture frame, I want to make sure that I'm screwing through the gypsum board and into the studs behind it. I used a stud finder to locate the center of the studs, and that way when I drive the screws through, I know that I'm hitting wood and not just hanging from the gypsum. I used a level to get this support board straight, and now I can hang the shelves and then drive a screw in from the top to make sure it doesn't slide off. You could make these shelves in a variety of different sizes, but because of the warpage in this type of wood, I wouldn't go much bigger than 5 feet by 5 feet. Your joints won't be cut perfectly, mine certainly aren't, and that's actually okay. With this kind of rustic modern design, a little bit of imperfection just adds to the warmth. If you want to see what we're working on next, be sure to follow us on Instagram. Check out some of our other videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on those notifications. Thanks. Bye.